And let's start off with the humble, the elegant watering can. In my opinion, every garden, no matter how large or small, you need a watering can because of the manual flexibility of it. I can come in, I've got some young seedlings in this bed here, and I can just quickly give them this little drink that maybe they're not going to be getting from an irrigation system. So I personally really like it for that reason.
Yo, what's up guys, it's Benny, another airport recording here, but this story is just too good and it has a happy ending, so I can't help myself. This is one of my favorite stories of all time. It shows the cultural power that we have right now against possibly the greatest enemy of the republic that is currently operational, which is the corporate media, the entrenched corporate media. Ladies and gentlemen, you'd think ABC News would have learned their lesson as they had to settle a $15 million defamation lawsuit against President Trump. ABC News is now funding a massive wing of the Trump library with this $15 million settlement and on-air apology from George Stephanopoulos, who says he regrets what he said about Donald Trump. You'd think they'd learn, but they haven't learned at all. Somebody named Terry Moran. Okay, fine. Just give me the dad joke here for a second. Terry Moran. He's this guy. Maybe you've seen him, maybe you haven't. He actually recently interviewed President Trump. He sent this post late last night, which is one of the most insane things I've ever seen posted on X. And that's saying a lot. This guy is a very prominent anchor on ABC News. Have a listen. The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he's one of the people who conceptualizes impulses of Trump movement and translates it into policy. But that's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not his brain, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He's a world-class hater. You can see it just by looking at him, because you can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. What's wrong with this guy? Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred only is a means to an end. And that end is his own glorification. That's his spiritual nourishment. What is wrong? This is like the ramble, like the rantings of some type of like woke lesbian pastor. Like, I don't, like some type of like psychotic activist. By the way, like you can tell by the way that he wrote this, you can tell the way that this is written that he spent a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, you spent a lot of time thinking about this. It's not brains, it's bio. Like, we're used to seeing stuff like this from like Keith Olbermann, Kathy Griffin. This is amazing. Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, popping off here. This is why Americans don't trust the legacy media. When the masks are down, the radical left-wing bias at ABC News, these people are feeding propaganda and the airwaves in the guise of righteousness. Stephen Miller saying the most important thing about Terry's full public meltdown is that it shows that the corporate press in America for decades are privileged anchors and reporters narrating and gatekeeping our society have been radicals adopting journalist pose. Terry pulled off the mask. He pulled off the mask. I don't, for the life of me, I can't figure out, like, this is, by the way, this is career suicide. And for a reason that you might not know. Not just is this like the unhinged shrieking of like a divorcee on Facebook, you know, like a divorced mom on Facebook, but also what I find wild about this is that ABC News as a business model won't survive, right? You got to understand the way that ABC News, NBC, and CBS were all set up were these massive, generous, free broadcast licenses that were given them by the public at the taxpayer's expense. They are essentially a functionary of the federal government, meaning they have to abide by very, very express requirements to deliver non-biased coverage in the public interest. And that public interest is right now being investigated by the FCC because obviously these networks are, left-wing cesspools. You know, the ABC also platforms The View, like for instance. You know, and but you have to understand the reason why ABC, NBC, and CBS are free on everyone's TV is because they promise to not use their broadcast licenses granted to them by the taxpayer. That is a huge benefit to them. Like, we don't have that, right? Imagine how big our show would be if it was free on every television. Imagine how big like anyone's show would be if it was free. You know, Fox News isn't free. That's a good example. Anyway, the point is that given the psychotic and pathological anti-Trump meltdown, I am calling for the immediate firing and apology from the network. ABC News' broadcast license must be stripped away. Do you think people would actually pay for ABC News? Of course not. Well, get a load of this. Terry Moran has been suspended by ABC News after he called Trump advisor Stephen Miller a world-class hater. Okay. ABC News correspondent Terry Moran suspended after wild rant against Trump advisor Stephen Miller. He eats his hate. These people they're truly pathological. I mean, it's really psychotic. I'm glad he did it, though. I'm glad he did it because it shows you what this is. ABC News senior correspondent has been suspended after a late-night screed against White House advisor Stephen Miller, along with President Trump, social media, drawing scathing backlash from the Trump administration. This guy truly is a moron. ABC News announced on Sunday that it was suspending him over concerns of him violating his outlet's standards for impartiality and objectivity, which is, of course, true. ABC News stands for objectivity and impartiality, LOL. In its news coverage, it does not condone subjective personal attacks on others. The Post does not reflect the views of ABC News and violates our standards. As a result, Terry has been suspended pending further evaluation. He deleted his post, never a good look, but not before, of course. They were screenshotted and moved around like wildfire. An ABC journalist posted this absolutely vile smear of Stephen Miller. It's dripping with hatred. Remember that every time you watch ABC News, says J.D. Vance. Yeah. Everyone is roasting right now. Just a reminder that Terry Moran just interviewed Donald Trump, and Donald Trump destroyed him. Get a load of this.
Wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
Right. We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
there in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
Well, we'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
Carolyn Levitt obviously calling for his firing. J.D. Vance calling for his firing, saying that ABC News needs to apologize. Looks like they're on their way. Various members of the White House comms team saying he's the enemy of the people. This guy needs to be fired, obviously, for what he's doing, or their license needs to be stripped away. Yeah. Obviously, Terry Moran, just angry about the way that Donald Trump wrecks him inside of the White House. ABC News' broadcast license should be revoked. I mean, listen, this would mean that ABC News would have to pay. People would have to pay for ABC News the way that they pay for Fox News, right? Would they survive on that model? No. No, they will not. Everything about this Terry Moran post needs to be studied. Notice, Moran gives full endorsement of physiognomy, states that he has the ability to read Stephen Miller's thoughts and minds. Wow. Yeah, totally unhinged. Everyone's jumping in. Bizarre late night radical rant. They must immediately remove him. And also, more importantly, they should really threaten the broadcasting licenses. Why should everybody have to pay for Fox? Why should ABC News, CBS, NBC, PBS all be free? Ladies and gentlemen, making that point was Carolyn Levitt on Fox News this morning with Maria Bartiromo. Here you go.
Stephen Miller put a post out about the details of the big, beautiful bill, and he was attacked by one of the reporters apparently on ABC. I saw your tweet about it, and you say last night in a since deleted post, so-called journalist Terry Moran went on a rampage against Stephen Miller. What happened, Caroline?
Well, ABC is going to have to answer for what their, again, so-called journalist put out on Twitter in the wee hours of the night, calling Stephen Miller vile. They said that President Trump is a world-class hater. And this is, again, coming from someone who is supposed to be an unbiased and professional journalist. This is unacceptable and unhinged rhetoric coming from someone who works at a major television network. We have reached out to ABC. They have said they will be taking action, so we will see what they do. But I think this speaks to the distrust that the American public have in the legacy media. And it's why in the White House press shop and in President Trump's White House, we have made so many significant and much needed changes to press access and transparency at the White House. We've invited in new media. We have shaken up the White House press pool. And we also just won a major victory over the Associated Press, who thought that they had a constitutional right to walk into the Oval Office or to fly on Air Force One, and a judge said no. In fact, those are privileged spaces that belong to the President of the United States, and this is a great ruling for democracy. We fought them in court, and we won, and so we will continue to keep or hold journalists accountable. All we're asking for is truth and transparency. That's it.
Of course. And you said ABC is going to take action. What do you expect that action to be?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, hopefully this journalist will either be suspended or terminated. You cannot go on these unhinged rants against administration officials and the President of the United States. And then clearly he knew he was wrong because he deleted the post as soon as he allegedly woke up this morning.